ओम सर्वधर्मस्थापकस्त्वं सर्वधर्मस्वरूपकः आचार्याणां महाचार्यो रामकृष्णाय ते नमः. We are studying the Sri Ramakrishna Leelaprasanga as the spiritual teacher, second part, and we are in the second chapter, the name of which is the mood of the spiritual teacher and various communities of holy men. And in that we have heard about the Vedantins, and now we just concluded about the Ramayat Babaji. But something more is there about the Ramayat Babaji. We have heard the detailed story of Jatadhari, the father of Ram Lala. And after that, one sadhu wrote only Om Rama in his book. Now something more. The para number 19. The devotional songs and couplets of the holy men of the Ramayat community. Couplets in Hindi it is called Doha. Doha, 2 lines. And songs. Thus did the master tell us of a great many sadhus and sing for us from time to time the devotional songs he had learned from them. So Thakur could pick up any song quickly. Take for example the songs. The English translation is given. Songs are in Hindi, not in Bengali. You have not, O mind, recognized my Rama. What then have you recognized? I would like to put a if there. मेरा राम को ना चिना है दिल, चिना है तूने क्या रे? If my heart, you have not recognized Rama, then what have you recognized? That means the world is unreal other than Rama. And what have you known? और जाना है तुम क्या रे? Recognize that he is an avatar and to know his real nature. One who tastes the bliss derived from taking the name of Rama is a true sadhu. Sant wahi jo Rama rasa chake. Rama rasa means the taste of Rama's name. और विषय रस चाका है so क्या रे? But what is he who tastes the pleasures of worldly objects? That means no meaning, no, nisar. A true son is he who delivers the family from Maya's grip. But what are other sons worth? पुत्र वही जो कुल को तारे और जो सब पुत्र है सो क्या रे? So that is the only thing putra can do for the family. Athava and another song. That is a description of Rama form. And by Tulsidas. Worship Ramachandra, the consort of Sita, the Lord and King of the Raghus. The protector of Ayodhya, there is no second object of worship. His smile and words, his gait and naughty bearing, his face and long eyes. So, Tulsidas, experiencing, visualizing. Visualizing means not by mental effort, but experiencing actually this form of Ram. And so he is describing. His nose and forehead beautiful with boyish frowns and a mark of saffron, and sandal paste giving the appearance of the morning sun. His dazzling earrings, his necklace of pearls shining like stars and dangling on his broad chest, like the Ganga coming out piercing the peak of the mountains green with flora. The appearance of that necklace. This hero of the dynasty of the Raghus is there, walking with his friends on the bank of the Sarayu. Sarayu is the river flowing near Ayodhya, Rama's birthplace. Tulsidas is beside himself with joy, gazing and feasting on his beauty and craves for the dust of those lotus feet. Then a third, this is a couplet. He really lives in the world who worships Rama. He really lives in the world who adores him. Actually, in song, same word is there in both the lines. Ram bhaja se jiyare jagame, Ram bhaja se jiyare. So, bhaja has been translated as worships and adores. And the fourth, another small song. There is no one except Rama who can save me. We have forgotten the other lines of these two sweet songs. They are not couplets, they are songs. But Sadhanji is quoting from his memory. So he says we have forgotten. I feel that the editors could have searched and supplied them to us. We have to do that. We have to find out and we should tell in the class. Sometimes he recited for us the couplets he had learned from those sadhus. He said, sadhus always teach that one should protect oneself against the dangers of committing a theft, of being in woman's company, and of telling a lie. Saying so, that is Thakur himself is telling, saying so he would forthwith ask us to listen to what was said in Tulsidasa's couplet. Tulsidas stands security if God be not realized, stands guarantee. If God be not, Jamin is the word, so like, yes, guarantee. That means if it does not succeed, I will pay the money. That is Jamani in the court language. Tulsidas stands security if God be not realized by truthfulness, obedience, and lack of covetousness regarding others' wealth. Second couplet. Tulsidas is a liar if God be not realized by truthfulness, obedience, and looking upon others' wives as mothers. So two things are common in both these oils. One thing is new, their wealth coveting, and here looking upon women. After that, Thakur explains the words. Do you know what obedience is? It is humility. Actually, because of the translation. Originally is adhinata. Now, adhinata has been translated as obedience. So, what is adhinata? That Thakur explains is humility. That is, Deen Bhav. Yeah. What is Adinata? Deenabhav. When the right humility comes, egoism is destroyed and God is realized. It is also in Kabir Dasa's song. So Tulsidas collaborated with Kabir Das. I read the couplets. सत्य वचन अधीनता परधन उदास इसमें ना हरि मिले तो जामीन तुलसीदास सत्य वचन अधीनता परस्त्री मातृ समान इससे ना हरि मिले तुलसी झूठ जवान अधीनता की जानी दीन भाव नो कबीर सॉन्ग सर्विस वर्शिप एंड ह्यूमिलिटी will make one easily realize the Lord of the Raghus. Be steadfast, O brother, joyfully. So, Saradananda Swamiji is showing, or Thakur is showing, that the great mystics, they have the same opinion. Now, here a little comment will be better. People think that Kabir's Ram is not Sagu. Ram is a name Kabir is using, but he is referring to Nirgun. But that is not entirely true. He might have emphasized Nirgun, or formless aspect rather. But he is devoted to Ram. There is a couplet, if I remember correctly, Kako Nindo, Kako Vando, Dono Palla Bhari, Nirgun Mera Baap, Sagun Matari. And in Maharashtra, this story is famous. Everywhere it should be there. Kabir was a weaver by caste. By what caste here we do not know. He was found by weaver family as an abandoned child. So he was a weaver. And he became a good weaver, expert weaver. So the king of that country or some very rich man gave him a lot of wool to make one shawl for him. Now he used to send his orderlies or some people to see. And they would go and report that there is no, Kabir Das is not doing anything. He is simply chanting Brahma's name. So king came to see and he saw several workmen at full strength working on the balloon. That is the story. Understood? Marathi song I will tell you. कबीराचे विणतो शेले कौशल्याचा राम दास होई नामी रंगे राम होई दास Das is busy in Rama's name and Ram has become his servant and doing the work. That is one story. Second story is that knowing about the wool, about the silk, not wool, silk and shawl. So knowing about that silk, some robbers came and they found two young people, bright, with bows and arrows guarding the godown. Yet another story. So that is Kabira's devotion. And here he directly talks of that. Raghurai, na? Their additional point is Harise Lagi Raho Re Bhai. The patience and perseverance required. So this Ramayat Panti Babaji story ends now. Now we come to another aspect about Thakur's connection with Sadhu Sampradayas. A desire in the master's mind to supply all the necessities of sadhana to the spiritual aspirants of all denominations. The story of Rajkumar Achalananda. On another occasion, the master said, so how he loved sadhakas of all denominations. And they have two types of needs. One is for maintenance of the body, but other is for their particular sadhanas they require things. And they are not earning money. So Mathur should give all that. On another occasion, the master said, at one time a desire arose in my mind, that is desire, that I should supply the aspirants of all communities with all the necessities of sadhana. They would get all those things, become free from anxiety, and practice sadhana for the realization of God. And I would see it and be happy. I consulted Mathur about it. He said, where is the difficulty, Father? I will arrange everything just now. Give whatever you like to anyone. Over and above the already existing arrangement about supplying of uncooked rice, pulses, flour, etc., that was always there in Dakshineshwar. It is called Siddha, uncooked rice. To each sadhu, according to his liking, from the store of the temple, Mathur made provision for water pots, kamandalus, water kamandalus, if not water pots, lota. Water pot is a lota. Okay. Blankets, seats, asanas. Seats means. We cannot find a better word in English. Okay, seats. And even intoxicants such as hemp and hemp leaves for those who would take them, and wine, etc. Here there is an important thing. Why the sadhus take hemp? No idea. They should forget the world. And then with that mind they should think of God. So it is a artificial or outside help to forget. That is hemp. And tobacco smoking is too common among the sadhus. But that does not always serve the purpose. Tobacco, what it does, it releases the tension on the nerves and then one can think of God. But hemp will change the consciousness physically and then they can think of God. And wine is only the Tantra sadhana. Same purpose. Wine releases our hold on our mind and then we can think of God. But it is not used properly. Through this, Thakur is showing that also. For the tantric worshippers, he has clearly mentioned here. Many tantric aspirants used to come at that time and hold chakra, the holy circles. It is a particular arrangement in Tantra sadhana. I used to supply them with peeled ginger and onion, parched rice and pulses, which were necessary for their sadhana. And look on, while they worshipped the Divine Mother with these and called on her. Again, on many occasions, they took me to their circle and placed me at the head of it. They requested me to take consecrated wine. But desisted from making such requests when they came to know that I felt God intoxicated at the very mention of wine. We have found this elsewhere. Wine, Karan. And by hearing Karan, Thakur will think of the Jagat Karan, and therefore could not take it. As one who sat with them had to take consecrated wine, I put a mark of it on my forehead, smelt it, or at most sprinkled it with my fingers into my mouth, and poured it into their drinking cups. As soon as they drank it, some applied their minds, I found, to the thought of the goddess, became absorbed in counting beads or meditation on her, while others, far from calling on the Divine Mother, greedily drank too much and at last became drunk. One day, they behaved too improperly when I stopped giving them wine, etc. anymore. But I always saw Rajkumar sit for japa and abstain from applying his mind to anything else as soon as he took it. Whatever exception is showing, and limitations also. But afterwards he had, it seemed, some inclination for name and fame. It was quite natural, for he had his wife and children, and on account of wants at home, he had to pay little attention to the acquisition of money. So he wants name and fame. In any case, he used to take wine only because it was helpful to his sadhana. He, I saw, never took it greedily or behaved improperly. There is a footnote on him. He used to live now and again at Kalighat and was known by the name of Achalananda. He was a householder, tantric sannyas. He left behind a few disciples and grand disciples. His body was interred by his disciples with great pomp in a village near Kalighat. Kalighat is in Calcutta, but near Kalighat there is a village. The master was switched to spiritual emotion and inebriation at the very mention of the word hemp or wine, and entered into samadhi at the utterance of what are regarded as obscene words or song. Three things are there. If he hears the word hemp, siddhi, he enters into samadhi. If he hears the name wine, he enters into samadhi. And if he hears what we call the obscene word, he enters into samadhi. So what is the third thing? Two things I already told. Obscene words represent some distorted form of joy. But for Thakur, joy is the nature of Brahman. So even the obscene words describing that distorted joy used to send Thakur into samadhi. That was his spiritually tuned personality. Many thoughts are cropping up in our minds in connection with the Master's inability to take wine. Many were the occasions on which we actually saw that mentioning the words hemp, wine, etc. in the course of conversation, he became filled with divine inebriation and even entered into samadhi. That means some higher consciousness or complete samadhi. Many a time we saw the wonderful master enter into samadhi, uttering the name of that part of the female body, at the very name of which our roguish minds, proud of culture, are filled with the idea of vile enjoyment, or knowing that such ideas were sure to arise in their minds, those who consider themselves refined call it obscene with their ears against it, or protect themselves by flying to a distance. Three types of reactions he has mentioned. If somebody utters the name of the body female part, then somebody feels enjoyment. Others are better. So they denied it. Oh, obscene, don't talk like that. Trying to protect themselves from that. And the third is that they don't want to listen, they run away from there. But in Thakur, it is happening that he is going to Samadhi. Again, as soon as he got down from the plane of Samadhi, and regained a little normal consciousness, we heard him saying in this connection, Mother, thou hast indeed assumed the forms of 50 letters. 50 letters according to Sanskrit literature, language. Some count 51, 52, but 50 is common. Those letters of thine constitute also the obscene and indecent words. The Kha of thy Vedas and Vedanta and those of obscene and indecent words surely are not different. The obscene and indecent words as well as the Veda and Vedanta are verily thyself. So, two types of samadhi, you understood this? You understood this point? Obscene words representing distorted joy. So, joy is Brahman, so Thakuric mind is entering to Brahman. After coming back, he is telling that the Kakha of the obscene words and Kakha of the Vedanta are the same. So, that is not that distorted joy. Every word represents Brahman only. Say Ka is water. Water is Brahman. Or Ka directly is Brahman. So any word in the language is actually talking of Brahman. We do not know it. Thakur knows it. So two samadhis. First somebody utters a obscene name, Thakur goes into samadhi, comes back and says that Mother, the Kakha of the Veda and Vedanta and those are the same. Saying so, he entered into samadhi once more. That was the spiritual attunement. We cannot expect these things from anybody but God Himself. Alas, who will understand, far less explain, what an indescribable, wonderful light beyond the grasp of our minds and intellect there was in the eyes of that extraordinary God-man. God-man, he has used the word here. He has used this word frequently in sadhana path. Now, these days, anybody having some miraculous powers or humbug, they are God-men. But God-man has a particular meaning. Dev Manav. Not 50-50. Not like God. Full 10% God as expressed in the body and mind of man. That is God-man. That used to eliminate all the things good and bad of the world. So, in his eyes there is a light which is illuminating everything and showing Brahman there. Who can have those eyes to get the vision of the world which he enjoyed? No. I'm stuck with your enjoy. I do not find it in Bengali. কি অলৌকিক দেবমানব অনির্বচনীয় আমাদের মনোমধ্যের অগোচরে অপূর্ব আলোক কে সে চক্ষু পাইবে যে তার ন্যায় দৃষ্টিতে জগৎ সংসারটা দেখিতে পাইবে No, this word enjoy is not very proper. Enjoy always indicates subject enjoying object. And there is no mention of this word in the original Bengali. Vision of the world which he had, that's all. Blessed vision. Be attentive, O reader. Cherish these words carefully in your heart with awe and reverence, and think how deep and incomprehensible was the mental purity of that wonderful master. So from this he has shown the Guru Bhava. Ramprasad, on whom the grace of the Universal Mother was bestowed, sang, mystic poet, I don't drink wine, but nectar, crying victory to Kali, which makes my mind God intoxicated. Wine bibbers regard me as drunk with wine. Before we saw the Master, we could not even conceive that without taking intoxicants, a man by virtue of divine bliss alone could be in such a drunken state. We remember it very well when in our life we consider the author of a book be superstitious and foolish when he describes Sri Chaitanya, not wine or anything, description of Chaitanya, as losing his normal consciousness at the utterance of the Lord's name, Hari. So he used to think the author is foolish or too superstitious. During that, he is describing this to tell us what is the common understanding of the masses. And so comparatively, they should understand that it is wrong. During that period, there flowed a current of unbelief and doubt of this nature regarding everything in the minds of all the young men of the city. All young men educated. And immediately afterwards, we happened to meet this extraordinary master. Not only did we meet him, but observe him at all times, day and night, and with the eyes of skeptics. We saw his unrestrained dance and constant loss of normal consciousness in the bliss of Kirtan. Kirtan has been explained here. Kirtan has different meaning in different Indian languages. So in Bengali, what is called Kirtan has been mentioned here. Singing aloud the songs of the Lord's name and divine sports. That is Kirtan. In Marathi, Kirtan is a storytelling, divine storytelling, with all songs and everything. He is losing consciousness of the outside world in pain at the touch of a coin or any metal, to that extent. His deep inebriation at the mention of intoxicants by their association with the inebriation of divine bliss. And what did we see of him at the mention of the Lord's name or those of his incarnation? So these things which appear vulgar and low are sending him to Samadhi. What are the direct connections with God? Why? The utterance of the word that rouses the basest animal passion in ordinary man by its association with the female organ of generation sent him into divine, immaculate, supersensuous ecstasy. Immaculate Kamagandhahin. Bringing before his mind the womb of the blissful mother of the universe, from which worlds are created every moment. There is another thing. Yoni, Jagad Yoni. Are we still to tell you, reader, what qualities of this extraordinary God-man dazzled our eyes forever in a way that led us to adore him in our hearts as the divine incarnation? So this is an important point. Some people think of divine incarnation only when they see some manifestation of power. But Saradananda Swamiji says, taking the name of Swami in another essay in this book, that we did not go to Sri Ramakrishna for this, nor for his gross powers, not for his subtle powers, not for even Samadhi. We had cherished some ideals in our mind, and when we went to him, we saw these ideals much more than our 100% imagination. So, that he is describing what qualities of this extraordinary God-man dazzled our eyes forever in a way that led us to adore him in our hearts as a divine incarnation. So that is the main thing. Examples of this. Now he'll go on telling us examples. First, at the house of Ramchandra Dutt. Many a time the master came with his devotees to the Shimla, in bracket Calcutta. Actually, the name of the area is Shimulia, but shortly they say Shimla. Those who do not know, someone Kathakar telling about Thakur. He went to Shimla to meet Narendra. And suddenly he took him to Panchavati near Nasik. House of his great devotee Ramchandra Dutt. Here some misprint has come, a director. That is double T, not R. And enjoyed great bliss together with the devotees. After enjoying for some time the bliss arising from talking of God, one day he started for Dakshineshwar. Rambabu's house was situated in a lane. Footnote says Madurai's lane. Carriages could not come to the front of the house. One had to leave one's carriage on the main road a little to the east or to the west of the house and walk up to it. A carriage was waiting on the western main road to take the master to Dakshineshwar. Enjoyment in original Bengali, अनेक आनंद करितेन एक दिन ऐरूप किछुकाल उपने ईश्वरीय प्रसंगे आनंद करिया. Can we not have a better expression for that? Experiencing joy. I think it is experiencing bliss or joy, not enjoy. I have found a better word. Anyway. This word is too common but not correct. The master started in that direction and the devotees followed him. But the master was staggering on account of divine bliss, so much that he could not go these few steps without being helped by others. Two devotees on the two sides caught hold of his hands and helped him to walk slowly. There were some people standing at the bend of the lane. How could they understand the state of the master? They were talking among themselves. Oh, how dead drunk the man has become. Though the words were spoken low, we could hear them and could not but smile and say to ourselves, indeed. Second example. In the presence of the Holy Mother at Dakshineshwar, beautiful example. The beauty in this example is Holy Mother's understanding. One day in the daytime, the master asked our supremely revered Holy Mother to prepare a few rolls of betel leaf. Very clear here, betel leaf. Brush his bedding and sweep clean the room and went to the Kali temple to pay his obeisance to the Mother of the Universe. She had quickly finished almost all those things when the master returned from the temple, as if in a completely drunken state. His eyes were red, steps hopelessly unsteady, and his words indistinct and inarticulate. He entered the room and came staggering up to the Holy Mother. The Holy Mother was then attentively doing the household work and could not at all know that the master had come to her in that mood. The master, like one drunk, then pushed her person and said to her, "Ah, have I drunk wine?" She looked back and was astonished to see the master in that state. She said, "No, no, why should you drink wine?" The master, "Why do I stagger then? Why can I not speak? Am I drunk?" The Holy Mother, "No, no, why should you drink wine? You have drunk the nectar of Mother Kali's love." The master, "You are right." Saying so, he expressed joy because she has understood. And we can add, she was always right in understanding Thakur. Swami Vivekananda had to struggle quite a bit, but she was always right. The third example at Kashipur on seeing a drunkard. Seeing a drunkard. Seeing the devotees of Calcutta came to the master, and at his grace, the master would go once or twice a week to the house of one or other of the devotees. If anybody could not come to him at the fixed time, and if he could not get news of his welfare from anyone else, the merciful master would personally go to see him. Again, his mind sometimes would become restless, and he would go to Calcutta to see someone if the latter did not come to Dakshineshwar at the fixed time. But his auspicious visits, it was invariably seen, were for the good of those devotees. It is not selfish something that is going here and there. He had not the slightest self-interest. Beni Shah had some good hackney carriages at Varanagar. As the master came very often to Calcutta, it was arranged with him that he should send a carriage to Dakshineshwar on the master's order. He should not raise any objection. However, late at night the carriage might return from Dakshineshwar. Of course, he should get extra hire at the fixed rate for the extra time. This carriage hire was paid successively by Mathur Babu, Mani Sen of Panihati, Shambhu Malik, and Jai Gopal Sen of Sindhuriapatti, Calcutta. But the devotees to whose house he went paid the carriage hire for that day, if they were in a position to do so. Otherwise, these people are taking care. One day the master was to go to Jadu Malik's house at Calcutta to see his mother, who had great devotion for him. For he had no news about the family for a long time. The master had finished his meal and a carriage arrived where our friend A, who was a Atul perhaps. Yes. Girish Babu's younger brother Atul, our friend. Our friend A came by boat from Calcutta to pay him a visit. As soon as the master saw A, he made inquiries regarding his welfare and said, "It is very nice that you have come. I am going to Jadu Malik's house today. I shall get down at your house on my way and see G." Who is G? Girish Babu. He could not come here for a considerable time on account of pressure of work. Come, let us go together. A, who was then newly acquainted with the master, agreed. He had seen him only on a few occasions in a few places. He therefore had not known well that the extraordinary master had ecstasy at any place and at any time. When he saw even those things or persons that we call contemptible or detestable or unworthy of touch or look, even by seeing such people he is going into samadhi. Or everything is Brahman and with that drunkard, that is. Now the master got into the carriage. The boy devotee Latu, now known as Adbhutananda, took with him the master's bag, towel and other necessary articles, bag of the spices, and followed the master into the carriage. Our friend A also got into the carriage. The master sat on one side of the carriage and Latu and A on the other. The carriage started gradually, went beyond Baranagar Bazar and was passing by the Now, how do you read it? Sridhar, how do you read this word? Mati Lake. Mati Lake. Moti Jail. Moti Jail. The Bengalis pronounce A as O. And they write O as O. So MA. And the English is a very poor specimen for writing. 26 letters, while Sanskrit has 50. So what to do? But those who do not know Bengali would normally read it as Mati Lake. So I am telling it is Moti Jheel. Nothing particular happened on the way. The master saw this or that on his way and was asking Latu Are about it like a boy. Or he raised this topic or that and was going on merrily as in the ordinary normal condition. There was something like an ordinary bazaar to the south of the Moti Lake. And further south, there were a wine shop, a dispensary, a few stables. Stable means horses are kept. And some child houses, forming a warehouse for rice for sale. Warehouse is a store where when it comes from outside it is stored. To the south of this place, the broad road to the well-known temple of Sri Sarvamangala and Chitreshwari led to the bank of the Ganga. One had to keep that road to the right to go to Calcutta. Chitteshwari. Chitteshwari. Here R is given Chitreshwari. Chitteshwari clearly. So two places we found R has come in place of T. It is double T. Chitteshwari led to the bank of the Ganga. Some drunkards were then sitting in the grog shop, drinking wine and were noisily making merry. Some of them were singing joyfully, and some dancing with gesticulations. And the owner of the shop, having engaged his servant in selling wine to them, was standing absent-mindedly at the door of the shop. There was a big mark of vermilion on his head, forehead, tantric. Sindur, huh? Now the master's carriage was passing before the shop. The shopkeeper seemed to know the master, for when he saw him, he raised his hands and saluted him. All this has been described by Atul afterwards to Sardanji. The noise attracted the master's attention to the shop. And he happened to see the drunkards expressing their joy noisily. As soon as he saw their merrymaking due to the drinking of wine, Karana, the memory of the blissful nature of the universal cause arose in his mind. Blissful nature of the universal cause, Ananda Sarup Brahma, through association. It was not the memory alone, but its direct experience also followed. Experiencing God. And he was completely filled with inebriation, and his words became indistinct. That was not all. He brought out suddenly a part of his person and his right leg out of the carriage, placed his foot on the footboard, and stood there. Like one drunk, he expressed joy at the sight, moving his hands and making gesticulations of his body, cried out loudly, "Very nice, fine, enjoyment, bravo, bravo." What are the words? বেশ হচ্ছে, খুব হচ্ছে, বাহ বাহ বাহ। Again here, enjoyment word has come. It is not in the original. বেশ হচ্ছে, fine. Nice things are happening. Nice things are happening. Wow, wow. A said, we had no previous indication that the master would suddenly be in that state. He had been talking like one in the normal state, but no sooner had he seen the drunkards than he was in that condition. I was benumbed with fear. In a great hurry, I stretched my arms with a view to dragging his body into the carriage and making him sit, when Latu interfered and said, nothing need be done. He will control himself and will not fall down. Latu Maharaj knew that. I therefore remained quiet, but my heart went on throbbing violently for some time. I thought how very wrong it was for me to drive in the same carriage with this mad master. I will never do so again. All these events, of course, took much less time to happen than to describe quickly. The carriage left that shop behind, and the master sat quite within it. And happening to see the temple of Sri Sarvamangala, said, there is Sarvamangala. She is an awakened deity. Salute her. Saying so himself saluted the Devi. Here one has to comment upon what is this awakened deity. Can you tell? Jagrat Devata? As soon as you come across a word, we must think of it. Where one experiences the presence of God easily, that is called Jagrat Devata. And she communicates with us. Then I looked at the master. Saying so himself saluted the Devi when we also did so in imitation of him from that distance. Then I looked at the master and saw him in quite a normal state, smiling gently. But the throbbing of my heart did not come to an end for a long time, thinking he might have fallen and even died. Now it completes this story, huh? That is Sadhana Swami style. The wine thing is over. Huh? When afterward the carriage came and stood at the gate of the house, he said to me, is G in? Please go and see. I went and came back to say no. He then said, well, I cannot see G. I thought of asking him to give today's extra carriage hire. That when you get late, you have to pay extra. Fixed thing, this Benipal and others would, these people will pay. But I am now acquainted with you. Will you give a rupee? Jadu Malik, you know, is a miserly man. He will not pay more than the fixed rate of 2 rupees and 4 annas only. But who knows how late at night I shall return after meeting the devotees. Again, the driver repeatedly asks us to make haste and annoys us when we are very late. Therefore, it has been arranged with him, arranged with Beni, that the driver should not create any disturbance if 3 rupees and 4 annas be paid. However late it may be before I return, Jadu will pay 2 rupees and 4, very practical, for annas, and there will remain no difficulty for today's hire if you pay 1 rupee. That is why I say so. Hearing all this, I handed over a rupee to Latu and saluted the master when he went to see Jadu Malik. He stopped in his house. Such a drunken state came daily at any time on the master. Also, a few of these examples can be recorded and tell the reader. Every time it is coming like that. The sadhus of all denominations that came to Dakshineshwar got help from the master in religion. That is the Guru Bhav we are narrating. Thus, on many occasions, the master narrated not only to us but to many other people the stories of many monks and aspirants that came to the Kali temple at Dakshineshwar. There are many people living even now who can bear testimony to it, because it is not known to all, so Saradananda is studying testimony. We were then studying in the St. Xavier's College. It remained closed on 2 days a week, Thursday and Sunday. As there was a crowd of devotees with the master on Saturdays and Sundays, we used to go to him on Thursdays also, which gave us the opportunity of hearing of various events of his life from his own lips. Also, means Sundays also they used to go, but that was a crowd area. So Thursdays also there. From the description of all these events, we could clearly understand that besides the Bhairavi Brahmani, Swami Totapuri, the Muslim Govinda, the monk who came providentially to Dakshineshwar, that who saved during his samadhi. Given here. To save the body of the master by forcibly feeding him during his stay in the highest Nirvikalpa place continuously for 6 months, and one or two others, each one of the monks and one or two others, about what that, besides. Each one of the monks and aspirants of various denominations that had visited Dakshineshwar before we went there had come to have new spirit infused into it. So besides me, that man who was beating, he was not doing like that, but other than. With the help of the light of the Master's extraordinary divine life, having thus reached the acme of their, this word is read as acme, of their life, they got the opportunity of showing the true aspirants of their denominations, thirsting for spirituality, how to realize God along their own path. That is the specialty, along their paths. Each of them came only to learn, and having perfected his knowledge, went away to his place, own place. Although the Bhairavi Brahmani, Totapuri and some others were very fortunate in coming and helping the master in his spiritual life, they too were blessed, that we have read already, to realize on the strength of the divine life and power of the master, those hidden spiritual truths which they were unable to experience in their own life in spite of their lifelong sadhana. So Guru comes, then they experience. Whenever the master realized perfection in the sadhana of a particular religious doctrine or faith, the sadhus of that denomination would come to him. We shall see this tomorrow. Om Sarvadharma Sthapakastam Sarvadharma Swarupakah Acharyanam Mahacharyo Ramakrishnaya Te Namaha. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. Sri Ramakrishna.
Jai